In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Molteni 55S Blue Lucens fountain pen. I'll go over the specs, I will do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about this pen coming up. So this is the Molteni Model 55S, and this is a pen that was made either by Leonardo or Pen Family. Now, I do believe it was sold by Armando Simoni Club, but I've heard that it's a Pen Family pen and that it's also a Leonardo pen. So I've heard both things. I don't know which one is actually true because I do know that Leonardo definitely made pens for Armando Simoni Club. So I don't know. If you guys know, I would really be curious. I believe Penultimate Dave bought one of these new and he said it was made by Leonardo. So let's just assume it's made by Leonardo. This is a very cool pen because it combines two different celluloids from Omas, the original Omas company. We have the royal blue celluloid, which makes up the cap, the piston knob, and the section. And then we have a blue Lucens celluloid, which is very translucent, and that makes up the barrel. So very cool pen. This was also released with a scarlet red celluloid that was also an Omas celluloid. I believe the scarlet ones went for $7.95 and these were $8.95. Quite a pricey pen, but for the celluloids that they're using, I think the price is justified. These pens were limited to 70 pieces only. They are individually numbered on the barrel here. We'll take a closer look at that. But just walking through the pen, the design of this pen, I like it. I don't love it. You know, it looks good. It doesn't necessarily look like a copy per se of another pen. What I think is incongruous for me on this is, you know, this really tapers to a very fine point on the barrel, and then it's a lot more sort of chunky on the cap, and the taper is much more subtle. So you kind of have something very pointy and then relatively rounded off. I would have liked to see these shapes maybe mirrored a little bit more instead of being so different. I think that's my main complaint with the look of this pen. But I do think it is a good looking pen. You know, it's not an ugly pen. It's not Scribo. It looks nice. Now, finial, there isn't one. It's just sort of this domed shape here, this cone shape. The clip, I think, looks pretty good. You definitely have some of that faceted Omas clip shape here, but it's a little bit more flat, a little bit less pronounced. We do have the M Molteni logo engraved there, which looks pretty good. If you look at the side profile of it, you can see that the clip really hugs close to the cap, which I think is unusual. We do have a roller clip here. It doesn't really roll very easily. I don't know why it's hard to make a roller clip that rolls for a lot of these companies. It's totally bizarre to me. The finish of the trim on the side of the clip is a little bit on the rough side. It's not, you know, perfect, but it's okay. It's a solid piece of metal. I do think it probably is stamped. It's pretty firm. And then we have three rings here, very, I would say, Omas-esque, and then celluloid tapering down towards the edge of the cap there. Now, interestingly, I'll just compare it to this Leonardo clone from Omas, and you can see that same kind of clip design here. It just looks so much better on the Omas. You don't have this fat part down here. It's just a much stronger looking clip. You know, it's curved more than being, you know, tight against the cap there. And of course, they know how to make a roller clip that actually just rolls easily, which a lot of these new companies can't for whatever reason. It drives me nuts. But notice the rings on the cap here are almost identical. Interestingly, one of the differences between this pen and a Lucens Omas, like a real Omas, is they put a sleeve on the inside here. So the ink is not actually in contact with the barrel, and that offers some pros and cons. So the pro would be you can kind of put, you know, you can be less careful with what kind of inks you put in this pen. You can put in those, more basic, more acidic inks and potentially not worry about it eating the celluloid. The downside is it doesn't look as good. I mean, you can kind of see the sleeve in here, not having that ink directly in contact with the barrel doesn't show off the ink as well, and it just kind of makes for a messier looking pen. But it's kind of a minor thing. It's really a style thing. This to me for sure is more practical than the Omas version would have been if you like to use more modern, more saturated inks. And you do see the metal in here, which again you wouldn't see in an Omas because they didn't use metal in their filling systems. So it is what it is. You can see some of the ink here just right in this section here. That's all that we can see. On the engraving here, we can see it says Molteni Modelo 55-S, made in Italy, and this is number 10 out of 70. So, like that, nice engraving on here. Uncapping the pen, yeah, it looks like one full turn, is that right? Yep, one full turn, which is great. Really nice grip section here. It tapers and then flares out at the end. Very comfortable. Good width to it. Works really, really well. And then here we have the nib. Now, I believe this is a Bach, but I really don't know. It could be a Yovo, not sure. The laser engraving on this nib is absolutely terrible. If I run a tissue or any kind of cloth along the nib, it just grabs onto the fibers of the tissue or the cloth. It's super rough. And if you notice, we have kind of this black outline here. That's just the ink being held on by that crappy laser engraving. Now, visually, I actually don't think the laser engraving looks terrible, but it's the roughest engraving I've ever seen on any pen. I don't know what they did. I don't know how that works. I don't know laser engraving technology that well, but man, it is super, super rough. So I really don't like that. But if you look visually, I do think the design looks nice, and I don't see like a necessarily a messiness to the laser engraving. Now you can definitely see the difference here where it says 18K and then 750. That is actually stamped, and then the other parts are laser engraved. Now we do have a really nice, elegant ebonite feed here. We have this kind of swooping look to it, which is very elegant. And if I do compare it to a real, vintage Omas, I think we can say that, the ebonite feed on the Molteni is prettier with that, swoopy look to it. Let's do some measurements here. Roughly 152 millimeters long. Uncapped, it's 132. Posted, this thing does actually post pretty nicely. I tend to not use it posted just because like the cap, the edge of the cap just always hits my hand. It won't be a problem for other people, but it may be a problem for some. But anyway, I don't tend to do that. It also has metal in the filling system, so this pen is a lot more heavy, a lot more back weighted than a real Omas would have been. Not that this is a copy of an Omas, it's just using Omas materials, so there's some Omasiness to it. Okay, this is a 165 millimeters, so quite long, but it does post decently far down onto the barrel there, which is quite nice. Now, if we do the grip section, very comfortable grip section. I'll go right behind the threading here, 13 millimeters, and then where it tapers, where it's thinnest, is 11.7. So very nice, comfortable pen. I really like the feel of this pen in hand. You have that warmth that you get from celluloid, and it's just a little bit more, I don't want to say oily, but there's like a more slippery feel to this than normal plastic, which I think is very, very nice. Now, let's do the weight, 20.1 grams, quite a bit heavier than an Omas would be. Also, the cap is quite heavy. If we look, I don't know if we're going to be able to see in here, like it's actually quite heavily weighted towards the top. You can see that step there, that's like all thick celluloid. So, with the cap, 36 grams, which isn't crazy heavy. I mean, I can definitely write with this posted without too much issue, but I do tend to write with it unposted. Okay, let's do some comparisons with some other pens here. So here it is with a Omas Extra Lucens, the 557 size. So this would have been the biggest size that Omas makes. So you can see it's definitely longer than that. It's also quite a bit fatter. The nibs are the same size, essentially. This one has an extra flexible nib on it, so it's a little bit more narrow than the Molteni, but you can see the grip section is quite a bit smaller. This is so much lighter than this pen. And if we look just a little bit closer here, there's just a lot more clarity on the Omas because it doesn't have that internal sleeve like the Molteni does. Then here it is with a Aurora America, which is basically just an Optima. You can see it's quite a bit larger than that. Here it is with a Mont Blanc 149. It's actually a bit longer than that just because it's so pointy. The 149 is fatter, and of course this has a number 9 nib versus a number 6 nib like we have here. Big pen. I think it's fair to say this is, an oversized pen, though with the number 6 nib. For the writing sample, I'm going to be using a Papermind Moya River hardcover notebook. These notebooks are excellent for fountain pens, and for Blake's broadcast viewers and subscribers, you can get 10% off with code BB10 at checkout. This is the... Whoa. I had the... had it uncapped a little bit too long here. Molteni 55 Blue... Lucens, I think. Gosh, I really can't spell. I can't write anymore. My brain is just toasted. It's a medium, and this is Parker Washable Blue. Try some fast writing. Ugh. This is definitely a drier ink, but I'm not really seeing any performance issues. This nib is super smooth. It's very wet, and yeah, this does well with the drier inks. Really, I don't know who makes the nib. Maybe it's Bach, but it's just a fantastic writing nib. In terms of flexibility, you can push on it a little bit, but you're not really going to see any line variation in normal use. Maybe I can try pushing on it, but yeah, it's just kind of a soft nib as you would expect for a 18 karat gold nib. Now reverse writing, it's not bad. It's relatively smooth, and you do get a little bit of a difference in the line there, so I would say this is a candidate for that. Just a really nice nib. I wish the engraving was better on it, but it's a very enjoyable writer. So what are my pros and cons for the Molteni 55S Blue Lucens fountain pen? Well, I think the main reason to buy this pen are the two Omas celluloids that are used in this pen, the Royal Blue Celluloid and the Blue Lucens Celluloid. These two celluloids are rare, they're very pretty, and it's great to have them on, a brand new modern pen. I also do like, to an extent, that we have a sleeve inside the piston filling mechanism here so that the ink doesn't interact with the celluloid. This means that you can use more modern inks that are maybe more basic or more acidic, and they won't, in theory, interact with the celluloid, which can be a bit unstable. So I really do like that. I think the comfort of this pen is very, very good. It feels great in the hand, particularly unposted, big, fat grip section. And we have a very wet, juicy nib that's very smooth, very nice to write with. It's quite an enjoyable pen to use. Now, in terms of cons, I don't know how well this pen will hold up in time. I haven't heard great things about pen family pens. I don't know if I've ever owned one. Maybe this is one. I don't know. The finish on the clip on the side of the clip isn't great. The ball doesn't roll very easily on the roller. The way that the clip really hugs close to the cap, I just don't think this is a very useful clip, to be honest. And if you do clip it on things, you may risk bending the clip. So not great there. The nib, the laser engraving on the nib is really rough. So if you rub a cloth over it, it's going to catch all the fibers in that cloth. It's pretty unpleasant to try to clean this nib. So I don't really bother doing that other than just running it underwater. I will say also, now I did say this was a pro, but in a way it's also a con. Having that internal sleeve in here, it kind of muddies the visibility of the ink and just makes for a less clean looking pen compared to, Moss Lucens pen would have been like, because they just have that clarity of not having that extra sleeve in there. The other thing is, well, they only made 70 of these. I believe they're all sold out. So you'll only be able to find one of these on the used market. But that's pretty much it. Do you guys have this pen? Do you like this pen? Let me know in the comment section below if you like this video. Please hit that like button. And if you want to see more fountain pen, paper, and ink videos, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much. And until next time.